MPs will vote on Theresa May's Brexit deal on Tuesday, in the most important parliamentary decision in decades. After days of debates, the Commons will vote on the plan she agreed with Brussels after months of political wrangling. Parliament will sit again on Monday to resume the Brexit debate. Following another weekend of pressure on Mrs. May about the details of the deal, Downing Street could make some concessions on certain parts of the blueprint for Britain's exit ahead of Tuesday's vote. Here's what could happen if her withdrawal agreement is rejected by the Commons. Johnson warns of EU blackmail risk under May's Brexit deal. The EU has been adamant the deal cannot be renegotiated. But, if faced with the threat of a calamitous no-deal Brexit, Mrs. May might fancy testing its resolve and see if she can win some changes to appease enough MPs to win a second vote. The Prime Minister is set to head to Brussels on Thursday for the European Council summit, where she could seek concessions. In recent weeks, Mrs. May has refused to answer questions asking if she would quit if her deal is voted down in the Commons. Under pressure on Brexit, Theresa May, AFP, Getty Images, hardline Tory Brexiteers may have failed to muster enough letters of no confidence in the Prime Minister to backbench Supremo Sir Graham Brady last month to trigger a leadership battle. But other players could make a move. Mrs. May has constantly refuted this idea, while Labour is pushing for it if it does not get a general election. It would possibly require an extension of Article 50 to delay Brexit. Jeremy Corbyn has been calling for a general election. Getty Images, the ultimate gamble for the Prime Minister, who would have to hope that voters will, via the ballot box, back her plan. But Labour has long called for an election, believing that, after the 2017 election resulted in a hung parliament, it has the advantage. Labour tries to engineer an election under the Fixed-Term Parliament Act. The opposition would have to win a vote of no confidence in Mrs. May in the Commons and then hope the Conservatives could put together a government which could win a second vote. In this case, a general election would be called. It would mean the DUP and a clutch of Tory rebels would have to side with Jeremy Corbyn, which seems unlikely. Days left for PM to save her deal as fierce opposition from MPs mounts. The warnings from institutions like the Bank of England, the CBI, and the government's own technical papers have been calamitous about the impact of leaving without a deal on March 29. Some Brexiteers say much of this is an exaggeration. But if everything else fails, it's possible it could happen. ECJ ruling Brexit looks as if it will make headlines from the get-go, with the European Court of Justice due to rule on Monday morning whether the UK can unilaterally revoke Article 50. Campaigners say that if the ECJ rules the UK can unilaterally revoke Brexit, it could give the country the option to stop the clock on leaving the EU, as it would give an alternative to the options of the Prime Minister's deal or no deal. Commons vote. Parliament will sit again on Monday to resume the Brexit debate, with a vote scheduled to take place on Tuesday. Following a weekend of pressure on Mrs. May about the details of the deal, Downing Street could make some concessions on certain parts of the blueprint for Britain's exit. Should the Prime Minister not secure a victory in the vote, then interest will turn to the numbers. Conservatives could send the 48 letters needed to the 1922 committee to force a leadership contest, and Labour could also table a vote of no confidence in Mrs. May. PMQs, the weekly spectacle of Prime Minister's questions, is scheduled for Wednesday at 12 p.m. How the vote goes on Tuesday will govern whether the Prime Minister can use the occasion to hail a historic victory, or will be left facing enormous pressure to explain what comes next for Brexit. Return to Brussels. Mrs. May is due to head to the Belgian capital on Thursday for the European Council summit. Brexit is not on the agenda. Instead, the EU's long-term budget, single market, migration and external relations are up for discussion, but should the vote not go the way of Mrs. May, she could look to secure concessions in Brussels. Supreme Court challenge. The highest court in the UK, the Supreme Court, will rule on Thursday on a challenge brought over Brexit legislation passed by the Scottish devolved administration. The court has been asked to rule on whether the EU exit bill passed by the Scottish Parliament in March is constitutional and properly within devolved legislative powers. Additional reporting by Press Association. More about Brexit. Theresa May